Welcome back to Snapshot. My name is Jackson. We had a very big tournament this weekend, Space City Invitational in Houston. A lot went down. Some big news about MLQ also got announced over the past week. We've got a lot to get into today. Let's not waste any more time. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a like on the video. And let's talk about some quad ball. So Space City Invitational, I was here for this tournament. I was commentating, had a lot of fun doing so, and quite some surprising results. First game of the day, Copperheads beat Boom Train again in the first game of the day, 175 to 100. Juan Acevedo getting a flag catch to win it for the Copperheads. Couple of things. So one thing that I noticed about Copperheads at this tournament is they are far less reliant on Hayden Boys to be the primary focal point now. Hayden is still the bulk of the offense, in my opinion. That said, I didn't think Hayden was their go-to. They had a lot of different ways, lots of different looks now. Billy Nellums has come into his own. Brandon Cabina's made a lot of strides. Sarah Stewart played very well this game, very good positioning. Some pretty good defensive stops as well. I think they also took advantage. Boom Train these first two games, we'll see it against Heat as well. They looked very predictable. They didn't change up a lot in terms of offense. They had a pretty good defensive presence, but they were very predictable on offense, which made it easier for Copperheads. I also think Copperheads were the benefit of the flag game going their way. Boom Train had control of the flag. I say control. They had control of the dodgeballs. And were committing resources to the flag. So they had two beaters around the flag for, I'd say, 5 or 6 of these 7 minutes, the majority of the time, and just couldn't catch. And I think if they catch, maybe they don't win, right? That'd be a 140, 135 if you do the split and you set scores 160. So it's a much closer game if they catch. But they just weren't able to catch. And Copperheads, as soon as they got a look, Acevedo made the catch, and that was big for them. So Copperheads looked more diverse, and Boom Train looked pretty predictable. And even with that, they went to golden goal in this game against Heat. This was an incredible game. Heat scoring 4 in a row to win it at the end. Pretty back and forth here in the beginning. Alyssa Villalba, Jay Stewart, Matt Blackwood, a lot of those UTSA players playing very well. Taylor Tracy and Baltimore Nunez at beater were on a line together for a lot of this game. They looked pretty good. Boom Train did get the catch in this one pretty early on and were right there able to win it. Yeah, I remember Heat being up at the half here, maybe by 2 or 3 goals or so. Boom Train went on a run, were 1 away. Heat made it golden goal, able to pull out the victory. Heat looked very good. There's not a lot of things that you could have poked holes in for Heat's game. Heat and San Antonio Soldados over the years are typically a team that plays with pace, and they definitely did here. Heat's going to score on you, they're going to run on you. But during flag runner on pitch is where you typically see that pace increase, because the beaters, especially with Boom Train, they were committing to the flag most of the time. But I thought Heat looked strangely composed during flag runner, which was interesting. They still played with pace, as they always do, but they weren't committing turnovers as often. They were actually getting quite a bit out of their offenses, which is why I think they did so well in this tournament. If you haven't seen, they went 4-1. They lost 1 game to Boom Train, but they beat Copperheads twice and beat Boom Train twice. Boom Train went 3-3 on the weekend, 2-1 against Heat, or sorry, 1-2 against Heat, 2-1 against Copperheads, and the Copperheads went 1-4. So definitely different than I thought it was going to go. I thought Boom Train was going to be the best team out here. Heat ended up defending home turf, and then Copperheads prolonged the revenge of Boom Train. Eventually, Boom Train got the revenge in this game, 190-145. I'd say this was the only game that got out of hand for the Copperheads. This started out not great. I think this is 9-3 around the 12 minutes. And the Copperheads kind of went back and forth, hung in there for a little bit. Catching the flag helped, but it was too little too late in this game, just because of how the start went. This game as well for Copperheads got a little bit out of hand towards the end. They kept with Heat for a while. It's 6-4 at this point at the 14 minutes, so not too bad. But then Christian Cortez catches the flag. Heat go 3 in a row after that. Nothing much that Copperheads can do about that. Copperheads are a team that I think are becoming more diverse. They're finding more ways to score, more ways to defend. The problem is they just don't have all the firepower that a Heat or a Boom Train does. And so I think this Copperheads team, like they did last year, is going to have upset potential. But how far is that going to take them, right? Can they win 3 games on a Sunday and go on a run? I think they can win 1. I think they can cause an upset. But I'm not sure that they're going to be able to cause multiple in a row. I want it to happen because I love Copperheads, but I'm not sure that it will. Here's my updated rankings. I pulled the trigger on Boom Train. I dropped him finally. Reign are my new number 1 team. I thought Reign could have been 1 for a while. They've been 1A, 1B with Boom Train for most of the year. And I dropped Boom Train. Went 3-3 this weekend. That was enough for me to pull the trigger. I put Heat above them for the wins, but also because I thought Heat looked like a championship team. And then Reign undefeated. They won at Winter Classic, so I gave them the nod. So I've got Reign 1, Heat 2, Boom Train 3. I dropped Dice to 4 just because I had Heat moving up so much. Most of the top 10 remains the same. Lobsters at 5, Trainwreck 6. I thought about dropping Trainwreck just because so much of Trainwreck has been Boom Train this year, but I left him for now. DCQC at 7, Breakers at 8, who we will see in action this week, Chaos at 9, and I brought Copperheads back in the top 10, replacing Vermont from the top 10. So congrats to Reign for being at the top of the list. Congrats for Copperheads being number 10 on my rankings. We will see how this progresses throughout the year. I think 3 of the top 4 will be at the Dallas National Qualifier at Garland. Reign, Heat, and Dice, and Copperheads actually will all be there. So that will be exciting to see. Let's get into the really big news, one that I'm excited about. MLQ, a lot of restructuring, a lot of big news about the 2026 season. But the 11th season, I think 11 now, right, of Major League Quad Ball will feature 12 teams. And we'll read in the article here in a second, but 3 teams have suspended operations for the time being. Austin Outlaws, New Orleans Curse, and the Ottawa Black Bears, all for different reasons, which we'll read about. But this is what you need to know. This is the new format. We have 2 conferences made up of 2 divisions each, all with 3 teams in it. So the Eastern Conference is here on the left. You have the Atlantic Division, the Boston Forge, New York Titans, and Washington Admirals, which is by far the group of death, division of death, whatever you want to call it. And then you have the Gateway Division, which is made of the Charlotte Aviators, Cleveland Riff, and Detroit Innovators. Excuse me. And then the Central Conference, you'll have the Lakes Division around the Great Lakes with Chicago Prowl, Minneapolis Monarchs, and the Toronto Raiders. And then the Frontier Division, which is essentially the South from last year, featuring the Houston Legends, Kansas City Stampede, and San Antonio Soldados. So the way that this is going to work is you'll play both teams in your division once, 1 home and 1 away. So let's take the Lakes, for example. Chicago might go to Minneapolis and might host the Raiders, and then Minneapolis would go to Toronto. So you'll play 1 home and 1 away against all 3 teams. That's 2 series of 3 games each, so 6 games. Then all 6 teams in a conference, so the Lakes Division and the Frontier, making up the Central Conference, will go to the Conference Championship. I did not confirm this. I believe it will operate like how the North Division Championship did a couple years ago, where I think the top 2 teams in each maybe have a shot at winning the Conference Championship. I'm not 100% sure how that's going to work, but all 6 teams will attend to crown a conference champion, which will receive the top seed in the champs bracket. And then the next 4 kind of wildcard teams, where 5 teams out of the 6 from the conference will make it to champs. So only 1 team from both divisions will not make it. 5 in total from both will. I think this is going to set up to be pretty competitive at the top for the conference championship race, and at the bottom to get that last slot. Because you think if you go off some of the strength of the teams from last year, which I'll have, I made a mock playoff bracket as well, like the Titans and the Forge, I mean, that could go either way, right? The Titans are probably the team that you would favor. Made the finals the past 2 years, won the finals 2 years ago. But Boston is a team that's on the rise, a very good team. They've been a great team in MLQ history. Can't count out Washington or Charlotte to make a run. And then Detroit and Cleveland, I think, can be competitive with Charlotte and Washington. Who's going to miss champs out of these four, right? These four have been, I'm not going to say staples because Cleveland just got back. But now that Cleveland is back, these four teams, any of them, right? I mean, who's going to miss? That'll be a storyline we have to watch out for. And then in the Central Conference, Chicago and San Antonio are definitely the top two teams. But Minneapolis was a dark horse scary team last year, made the semifinals. Kansas City even could be a team to watch out for. And then out of Houston and Toronto, that will be interesting, right? Who's going to make it to champs out of those two? Maybe both of them are better than a Kansas City or a Minneapolis, right? It'll be tough to say. We'll see once the season gets on. But definitely a lot of storylines to see. Let's quickly take a look at some of the highlights here. So as I mentioned, Austin, New Orleans, and Ottawa are going to cease operations. They talk about how Austin and San Antonio, it was good to have two teams for a while. Probably better just to go with one now, given the state of college in Texas right now. So they're just going with San Antonio. They've been more active over the last couple years. New Orleans doesn't have a good pipeline right now with Louisiana. And then Ottawa, there's been some travel concerns with them. So all three are going to pause operations. And maybe they come back in the future, but these 12 teams are what they're going with for now. There was some stuff to talk about Toronto being in a division with Chicago and Minneapolis, despite Cleveland being closer. And the travel just works overall better this way. Chicago and Minneapolis aren't too far from Toronto. It's farther than Cleveland and Detroit, but it makes more sense to do it this way instead of making a longer drive for somebody else. Cleveland is going to be with Charlotte is going to be with Cleveland and Detroit. That's going to make Charlotte's travel actually a little easier on them. So I like the divisions overall. I think they're going to be competitive as well. And we get some new matchups, right? Charlotte's going to play Cleveland and Detroit. That's not a matchup we see all the time. The Central Conference, you're going to see some old North versus South matchups. That will be interesting. So some good stuff that we're going to see. So they talk about, in the first phase of the season, each team will play two series, one home, one away. Then we'll have the conference championship. Then the top 5 from both conferences will qualify for champs. So I made a mock bracket. These are not official predictions. These are just based off of some projection of standings from last year and just my general view on quad ball in those areas right now. But this is what it could look like. So the top seed from the East, New York, would be over here. The top seed from the Central would be on the other side, say it's San Antonio. Then you kind of go back and forth seeding wise. So the top seed from the Central, the 2 seed would be on the opposite side. Then the 3 would come back. The 4 would be on the same side as the 2. And the 5 would be here. Now, all of these are best of 3 series. This isn't like a wild card game. The play-in is dead. This is a wild card series where the 4 from the Central will play the 5 from the East, and the 4 from the East will play the 5 from the West. That's going to create some competitive first-round series. The winners of that will play the top seed from both conferences. And look at some of the matchups that we could get. Boston versus Chicago in the quarterfinals. That would be a competitive series. Kansas City playing New York could steal a game, right? Washington can always cause some upsets, steal a game against the reigning champ San Antonio. Minneapolis plays Charlotte. Maybe there's some upset potential there. And then you might see San Antonio, Minneapolis in the semis, Chicago, New York in the semis as well. I think it's going to be shaping up well. I like this format quite a bit, and I'm excited that MLQ is back for 2026. Let's look forward at some upcoming games. Heroes versus Villains will be happening this weekend, I believe in Las Vegas. Henderson, Nevada. I don't know how close that is to Vegas, but Nevada. 4 teams attending: Bay Area, Seattle Sirens, Lost Boys, and the Second Stars. It'll be a simple round robin from what I can tell. Bay Area and Lost Boys should be the top 2 teams here. I'm going to take Bay Area to go 3-0 just because they looked a little bit better at Winter Classic in my opinion. Lost Boys will probably go 2-1. I think Sirens, as the defending Open club champion, probably 1-2, beating Second Stars. And then Second Stars probably 0-3, but anything can happen. It's quad ball. It will be fun. The weekend after is the Dallas National Qualifier at Garland, which is the DFW area. Someone was able to clarify for me. I wasn't sure. I thought they changed the format for bid allocations for champs, but someone had mentioned that if a team that wins a bid, say Copperheads in Garland, and then they win a bid somewhere else in Washington, in Washington, right? Copperheads will be attending here. Then it doesn't just go to the next best team; it converts into a wild card slot. And I believe they said there'll be 4 wild cards, and then any extras that get added on. So, for example, Dice, Rain, and Heat, some of the top teams in the country, will all be in Garland. There's only 2 bids at Garland. So if Heat misses, they're not going to another national qualifier. Do they miss out on champs? No. They'll probably get a wild card slot. But just wanted to mention that and wanted to preview Garland a little bit. Sam Houston, Texas, Texas State, UCLA, and UTSA will be attending for college. And then Brew Cities, which will be pulling some players from TCQC, from what I understand. So they'll be playing, someone will be playing with Brew. New Jersey Dice, Rain, Copperheads, and Heat. And given what we saw from Space City Invitational this last weekend, these should be some very competitive games. Still right now, I'm leaning on Rain, and I said Dice last week. I'm going with Heat now. I think Rain and Heat are probably the two teams that grab bids out of club. For college, Texas State gets 1. The other one, I go back and forth between Sam Houston and UTSA. I'm leaning Sam Houston right now, but that could go either way. And then even Texas could make a run. But that's what I'm thinking for Garland right now. That's all I got for this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And this is Jackson signing off.